Hi everyone, I'm Michi, a happy Japanese. Today I'm going to introduce you to DazToBlender8, a great add-on that will port your Daz Genesis 8 figure to Blender. By the way, what do you do when you want to make a character appear in Blender? Make a mesh of human body? Insert the bones? Adjust the weight maps? Make the texture maps? How many weeks or months do you need to make the figure you want? Or how many years will it take you to develop your skill of making figure? In the meantime, the world will change rapidly, and you will get older as much. Months and days pass like arrows without your knowledge, and at that time, you will miss the young age. No, never! I don't want to regret in my life. What was the reason you first want to do 3D CG? Remember that and start it right now. So I suggest DazToBlender8. From today, anyone can create figures in Blender in a short time and as you like. Well, you may not even have to create it anymore, because figures of all races, body types, and ages are prepared in advance, so you only have to choose from them. Thus, with DazToBlender8 and DazStudio, customizing your figure per mesh basis is a breeze. This is explained in detail in Chapter 6. So it is possible to make figures just like your friends or family. Yes, DazToBlender8 is what will revolutionize the 3D CG industry. If you exaggerate it like a commercial, that's right. That's only $50. You have no choice but to buy it right now. You should start right away without watching this video. Well, I guess veteran Daz and Blender users can skip the how to install of Chapter 1 and start right away. Also, if you have a good intuition, I think you can figure out how to operate everything without having to look at any chapter. That's it. Try to touch it roughly. You can use it somehow. Don't worry because your PC won't explode if you make a mistake. Alternatively, a time-lapse version is also available. But for those who are still worried about the explosion of the PC, this video is made up 8 chapters. 1. Introduction. 2. How to install. 3. Basic transfer work. 4. Basic mode control and IK/FK. 5. Animation. 6. Make the morph. 7. RidgeFi mode. Material control and morph selection dialog. The start time of each chapter is written in the comment field below, so you can jump immediately by clicking. Now let's get started!
The installation of DazToBlender8 will now be described. I will explain instead of the ugly man. First, download DazToBlender8.zip. Please unzip it. Then you will get 4 files as shown. 1.dza file and 2.zip files and user's manual. The .dza file is installed into DazStudio, and the .zip files are installed into each Blender. First of all, how to install the .dza file. For Windows, stored in C, Users, Public Documents, -3D Library, Script. For Mac OS, stored in Users, Shared Documents, -3D Library, Script. Now let's see if DazStudio has a script file installed. Open the Content Library tab in DazStudio, and open the folder in the following order. DazStudio formats my Daz3D library script. Then you can see that the script DazToBlender8 has been generated. This completes the preparation for DazStudio. Next, install the Blender plugin. First from Blender 2.8. Edit in the menu bar Preference add-on. Then click Install, and select DTB_V280.zip. The Install add-on from File. Now you will find Armature DazToBlender8 line appears. Then check the checkbox. Next, open the Save and Load tab. Enable Auto Run Python Script checkbox. Binary, click left lower Save Preference button. Then you will find DazToBlender8 control panel appears. Blender 2.79 is similar, but please select DTB_V279.zip. Otherwise, please install while viewing the manual. Next is the basic transfer process. This beautiful I will continue to explain. Let's do the simplest import task. Basically, the transition is finished in 2 clicks. First, run the DazStudio script. Double-click DazToBlender8. Then, Morph Input dialog will appear. But here, press the Accept button without entering anything in detail. Don't worry, because it will be explained in detail in Chapter 11, Others. Wait for the task will finish. Well, it's over. Next is the Blender side. Click Import New Genesis 8 button. Wait for the task will finish. In the case of a high-spec PC, it will take only a few seconds. However, it may take a few minutes for low-spec PCs. In particular, it takes a lot of time to wear a lot of complicated clothes. But don't worry, even low-spec PCs don't freeze. Let's render now. That's something like this. Next is the basic operation method. Now, let's look at the basic operation of the figure. In DazToBlender8, everything is in FK mode by default after importing figures. In DazStudio, we do this. Everyone, looking at this figure, why don't you think that bones appear and stand out? It's purposely done to make it easy to understand. You can wire it here and customize it in many ways. By the way, FK bones must be operated in normal mode, or the direction of bone rotation will not be understood well. If you want to fine-tune the rotation, try adjusting it here so it works well. You cannot operate well unless this is also in normal mode. IK is activated by pressing this button. IK bones are determined by the IK's influence. When IK is not effective, IK bone will not be visible. In DazStudio, we do this. The IK legs have something called pull bones. This is a bone to decide the direction of the knee, just like this. The arm does not have pull bone. But with IK, you can change the direction of the elbow by rotating the upper arm twist bone. When IK is enabled, foot rotation is performed by IK bones. Of course, at the time of FK, it is naturally rotated by FK. But, in the case of hands, IK bones cannot rotate the hands. At the time of FK and IK, rotate the hand by FK bone. Arm IK is just for move. There are different roles and movements between the arms and legs, so this is the specification so that they can be animated well. I didn't mean that IK's setting on the arm was properly rounded up. Okay? Next, let's see the shape keys. Watch the shape key column of the Data tab of the Property window. The purple part here is a shape key that is automatically driven by bone rotation, so you don't have to touch it. You can freely operate shape keys that are not colored. You can enter part of the shape key name here and you can search quickly. Enter, mouse open, and click the morph button. Then, mouse open, shape key is highlighted. You can manipulate the values here. Next, search for ice glows. Next, search for smile. There are many smile shape keys, so press the morph button to highlight smile shape keys in order from the top. Here is the end of the basic operation of DazToBlender 8. Next is the basis of animation. First, I will explain the display of the IK bone during animation editing. In general animation, legs are always created in IK mode, and arms are always created in FK mode. The square shape is the IK bone of the hand. Since it is not moving at all, you can see that the hands are currently in FK mode. In the previous chapter, I explained that IK bones are hidden when in FK mode. However, during animation editing, IK bones are not hidden and are displayed at about half the normal size. This is because there are rare cases where subtle animations with an IK influence of 0.1 to 0.9 are used to create subtle animations. Now, there's one question here. When switching between FK and IK in the control panel of DazToBlender 8, the influence can only be switched between 0 and 1. But what happens if you change the influence of IK from 0.1 to 0.9 in the Bone Constraint tab of the Property window? Let's experiment. Changing the influence in the Property window does not change the bone display in the Control Panel display. Then, press this Redisplay Subtle FK/IK button. Bone Display and Panel button selection according to the current influence. Let's take a look at some tips for expressing smooth movement with animation. Use the motion path to display the trajectory of the IK bone and check for bad movement. If there are extra irregularities in the motion path, the movement will be unnatural. To efficiently represent rotation, rotate the root bone as the foundation. Make sure that the axis of rotation overlaps the exact center of the root bone. Creating an animation takes patience, but if you make it carefully, you will be able to express natural behavior. Now, let's get a DazStudio woman pregnant in a minute. First, select a body figure. Hide the overlay. Click the To Sculpt button. I use Blob this time. When editing is complete, click the to Daz Morph button. Then, the location of the exported OBJ file will be opened. It's 9:30 on July 27, 2019. The name of the figure is Genesis 8 Female. So this folder is the currently exported folder. Now, launch DazStudio's Morph Loader Pro. Edit on the menu bar Figure Morph Loader Pro. From here, select the OBJ file mentioned earlier. Change the morph name, Pregnancy. Set Yes to Reverse Deformation. Well, let's see if the morph is well done. It looks like it worked. Now, do you notice this screen? If you've ever made morphs with DazStudio, you'll notice a lot. First, the clothes are different. Yes, if the objects to be sculpted are the same, there is no need to worry about different clothes or hair. And what? The pose is different. That's right. Blender figures pose like caring for their stomachs and smile on their faces. But DazStudio is in zero pose and doesn't smile. This is the awesomeness and revolution of creating morphs with DazToBlender8. In DazToBlender8, any pose is always exported with zero pose. For example, do you think you want to create a new character yourself and become a Daz 3D published artist? The first thing you probably want to do is probably output DazStudio as an object with zero pose and import it with Blender or ZBrush. Of course, since it is just an OBJ file, the pose cannot be changed. The sculpture is managed in the zero pose. But can you make a character that fits your image? With just one simple pose. So what do you think of the work of a sculptor? Some people may ask questions that are out of focus. But sculpture is made on the premise that the pose never changes. No, the pose is also one of the elements of the work. And if the pose of the sculpture changes, then it is already a completely different work. But 3D figures move freely. You have to make something that keeps moving according to your image. That means that you can't create a work that fits your image, other than sculpting while taking various poses freely. Also, image is important too. Do you think you can make a work in this pose when you want to make a muscular villain? Or you can make a work in such a pose when you want to make a character for a Disney Snow White girl? It's not difficult to do. It's impossible anymore. You can't make a character that fits your image unless you make a perfect pose for your character. Of course, there is a way to output OBJ while posing with Daz and load the morph as it is. But one pose at a time. It's too much work, so it's virtually impossible to create what you imagined. Also, suppose you want to make a figure that looks exactly like the woman in this picture. What will you do? I will do this. Set an image photo in the background and edit the mesh while comparing with the same pose and camera settings. How is it? If you have other photos of this woman, you should be able to edit and sculpt the mesh from various poses and angles. And then you'll notice how long the legs of most DazStudio figures are. By the way, if you open the mouth, you can even sculpt the teeth. When Malin is bent forward, a strange wrinkle comes to the stomach, so let's fix this too. Now, when you look at this figure, you see that the hair is the same object as well as the human body. Let's look at an example of editing this hair in a time-lapse. This time, I would like to divide the morph into two types by bangs and sides, so check the Make New Morph checkbox. There are two types of morphs this time. Side. bangs. Side. And bangs. This time I will explain RidgeFi mode. I have to tell everyone first. RidgeFi is very deep, and an excellent add-on. Maybe everyone thinks like this? Isn't RidgeFi an easy add-on that you can move with a single button if you only have a human mesh? It's a terrible misunderstanding. It takes a lot of technology to bring out the greatness of RidgeFi. But DazStudio's Genesis 8 figure has the ability to pull it out 100%. Let's see together that DazStudio's Genesis 8 figure and RidgeFi can produce such amazing results. In basic mode, all facial expressions were shape keys, but RidgeFi can also deform bones with shape keys. These breathing movements are all represented by bones, not shape keys. Expressed by slightly expanding, reducing tweak_spine 0.001 to tweak_spine 0.003 in the center of the trunk along the Y and Z axes. So, instead of just expanding or contracting, exhaled air first enters the upper part of the lungs and then enters the lower part. Then it goes out from the top and goes down. And when you inhale air, your mouth opens, and when you exhale, your mouth closes slightly. The great thing about RidgeFi is that your arms move slightly as you breathe. This is really well thought out and wonderful. Also, since all are bone deformation, all clothing moves in synchrony. It would be impossible to achieve this with shape keys. Finally, you can express that the human body is soft. When the human body is impacted, pressed against a hard object, or applied with force, the surface changes dynamically or finely. Such flexible movement of the surface can be expressed easily. It can be applied to a variety of expressions, such as the feeling of trembling muscles when lifting a very heavy object, or the fat of the buttocks crushed and spread sideways when sitting on a hard chair. Describes the material of DazToBlender 8. The material of DazToBlender 8 is composed of PBR shaders and is very real. Here you can adjust all the parts of the human body. Select the type of material from here. The actual adjustment is made up and down. If this X4 is checked, you can click 4 times for material adjustment with 1 click. The material adjustments for the eyes and the rest are done separately. By checking here, material adjustment is limited to the eyes. If this checkbox is not checked, material adjustments are made for parts other than the eyes. Both cannot be adjusted at the same time. For example, let's increase the value of subsurface scatter for a woman with this coffee cup. It looks like this. It makes a different impression. If you render it in a more understandable form, it looks like this. Other material adjustments are as follows: bright down, bright up, specular up, and roughness down, bump up, hue of color up, hue of color down, saturation up, saturation down, value of color up, value of color down. This section describes the dialog that appears first when you click a script file in DazStudio. You can specify the required morphs here and transfer them to Blender. Click on a row in the bottom row to copy it to the top row. However, you do not have to specify all the required morph names. For example, suppose you have the following morph name list. If you enter the word compress, following morphs will be exported. If you enter the word flatten, following morphs will be exported.